Black Panther tanks go into action. The Russian offensive seems unstoppable. But what seemed to be the beginning of a quick victory soon turns the front line into chaos. What happens next changes everything. What you are about to see contains sensitive footage from the Ukraine-Russia conflict. It is presented strictly for documentary purposes. Russian troops launch an attack against Ukrainian positions. For this, tanks equipped with protection systems advance. The Ukrainians wait patiently as the first attack will be carried out by the artillery. Shots are fired, and although they delay the advance of the armored vehicles, the offensive continues. As foreseen by the Ukrainian strategy, the time came to launch the drones. Already in full flight, FPV drone pilots begin locating the armored vehicles for engagement. The first target is located. In a desperate attempt to escape the drones, a second tank performs a defensive maneuver. However, it was already targeted by a drone. Even so, the elimination of 2 armored vehicles was not enough. A new wave of drones was already prepared to continue the offensive. The leading armored vehicle resisted more than 3 impacts, but was neutralized, followed by the second vehicle. Under a rain of coordinated attacks, the Russian convoy was being eliminated. Russian defenses proved effective, but it is difficult to withstand so many impacts. However, in modern warfare, the focus is to hold out as much as possible. The Russians understood the new dynamics of war and recently modified a tank, wrapping it in a dense mesh of metal cables over its entire structure, forcing the Ukrainians to adapt to the new defensive measures. At a certain point in the attack, several enemy tanks tried to break through the Ukrainian defenses using speed, the so-called Blitz War, when everything happens at extreme speed to surprise the enemy. The FPV drone teams, already positioned in ambush, waited patiently. The Ukrainian drone pilots executed a precise offensive against each armored vehicle, forcing the soldiers to flee from the vehicles amid explosions. One of the operators spotted a vehicle with an exposed vulnerability, revealing direct access to its interior. Armor was made to withstand external impacts, but when the explosion comes from the inside out, it becomes the vehicle's greatest enemy. The impact was devastating. In desperation, the Russian forces resorted to the UR-77 Meteorite vehicle to strike Ukrainian positions. The UR-77 Meteorite is a Soviet military vehicle created in the 1970s with the main function of mine clearing. It is based on the chassis of the Tu S-1 Gvozdika self-propelled howitzer and uses a system known as linear explosive charge, which launches a cable filled with explosives over mined areas.
Сейчас громко будет.
Upon detonation, it opens a safe corridor for infantry and armored vehicles. However, in the current conflict, the Russians have used the UR-77 in an improvised way, employing it as an offensive weapon against Ukrainian trenches and fortifications, since the explosion of the linear charge is extremely destructive in open or urban areas.
Вперед. Там, давайте. Підтягуйте вперед. Це наша територія, все нормально.
The Russian offensive was not successful, as the position was maintained. The fighting continued with exchanges of fire, but without significant infantry advance. The Russians then decided to use the rocket launcher system with flamethrower effect. Then fired, but did not realize that the worst could happen.
Братан, хто з тобою? Брат, відходимо зі мною, братан. Не бійся, нормально все, нікого не стріляй.
Ukrainian drones take off. The drone attack was initiated and the primary target was the UR-77 demining vehicle. Next, as a secondary target, the drones headed toward the Russian multiple rocket launcher. Both Russian and Ukrainian forces know the importance of drone operators, which is why they are constantly trying to damage structures and even target the operators themselves, many of whom have advanced skills in flight and bomb drops via drone. Both sides hunt these operators during rotation shifts, when they are vulnerable, since drone operations take place inside fortified positions with protection, camouflage, antennas, and other necessary accessories. A Russian drone located a Ukrainian vehicle with possible pilots who had been hunted for days by Russian intelligence. The Ukrainian soldiers spotted the enemy drone and managed to escape from the car. They were lucky in this episode. The Russian offensive now has 2 armored vehicles advancing, attempting to break through the Ukrainian defensive line. The first Russian vehicle is hit by an FPV drone. In sequence, a second attack is carried out. However, it became clear that another strike was needed to completely neutralize the... A new wave of Ukrainian drones is launched against the second armored vehicle. With the attack, the vehicle is disabled and the crew flees in desperation. Ukrainian soldiers received a mission to attack a Russian ammunition depot. However, there was a problem. The drone's flight path had to go through a forest, which could cause signal instability. The order was given to engage the depot, with priority for the use of a fiber optic drone due to its efficiency in maintaining a stable signal in such conditions. With precision, the Ukrainian drone pilot located and destroyed the Russian depot. Still using fiber optic drones, another pilot approached a Russian armored vehicle. To operate fiber optic drones, pilots need to be closer to the front line, as these drones have limited range. There have been several episodes in wars worldwide where bombs failed to explode on impact, yet they remain dangerous for soldiers and civilians. In one case, the Russians, for no obvious reason, dragged one of these unexploded bombs into their own fortification. The bomb, again without explanation, later detonated. The result, the Russian fortification was wiped off the map. War has a high cost, and often armies cannot quickly replace armored vehicles or weaponry. Russian forces have resorted to using civilian or transport vehicles, which also become targets of Ukrainian drones, preventing any kind of resupply along the Russian front line. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone spotted soldiers and also a Kamikaze 63501 military truck. This time, the drone fulfilled only its primary role, reconnaissance, and with precise information, passed the coordinates to Ukrainian artillery. From a distance of 15 kilometers, the shot was fired. Soldiers support HQ with a sticker. It helps the channel grow, or if you want to get even closer, join the squad as an official member. Ukrainian soldiers spotted an enemy drone and fired, but the Russian operator was skilled and managed to hit the vehicle. A new technique used by modern armies is the so-called sleeping drone. The strategy consists of positioning a drone in a strategic location and waiting for the enemy to approach. On the front line, a Ukrainian soldier identified one of these sleeping drones just as it attempted to take off. However, the soldier remained calm and fired with precision.
Soldier, tired of losing your strength on the battlefield? If you stayed until the end, you deserve to know our exclusive recommendation. Discover it right now in the pinned comment.